to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Have you ever thought about that you might have limiting beliefs around money, around success, about what you're actually capable of? If you've ever had thoughts like this, hello, welcome to the human race. This episode is for you. The good news is these beliefs, they don't have to be permanent. They are actually learned and they can be unlearned. And today's guest is living proof of that. The guest today is David Neagle. He is a speaker, best-selling author, founder of the multimillion-dollar global consulting company, Life Is Now, Inc. And he is also host of the Business Daily News ranked podcast, The Successful Mind. Being in the personal and professional development industry for more than 20 years, David has helped tens of thousands of people from across the globe gain confidence and find the right mindset needed to increase their revenue, turning their endeavors into 7- and 8-figure ventures. Here's the thing. David has lived this work. He didn't start out with a golden spoon, okay? He was a high school dropout, working manual labor jobs, struggling to make ends meet for his young family. He'll share his story himself, and trust me, it's a great story. But the bottom line is this. He was stuck. He was frustrated, but he was ready for something different. And he realized he had to change. And he did. And then his whole life changed. In our conversation, David shares what the transformation taught him about business, life, and that the opportunities are often right in front of us if we're willing to see them. This isn't theory. David brings strategies, hard-earned lessons, and results from decades of guiding entrepreneurs just like you. So if you've been wondering how to break through that invisible ceiling that you put there, how to stop spinning your wheels and finally step into the success that you know you are capable of and that you deserve, this episode is for you. And if you're thinking, hang on, Luann, I'm in the weeds. I barely have time to listen to a podcast on my commute. Never mind carve out hours for mindset work. Then guess what? You're exactly who needs to hear this conversation. So I have to say, listen to it while you're driving, but plan to re-listen to it later. And I have a practical idea to help you get out of the weeds so you have a couple of extra hours a week or a month so that maybe you can put it back into your mindset and your business training. It's called Design Trade Services. Sourcing, ordering, tracking, shipments. It's a full-time job on its own doing all of these things. Managing multiple vendor accounts, chasing updates, dealing with back orders and freight issues. It's exhausting and it steals time from what you do best, designing, and what you need time for doing, which is working on your mindset and your business. And that's why Design Trade Service exists. They handle the hassle for you. One account, one order, one point of contact, access to hundreds of top brands with exclusive designer net pricing. No membership fees, no headaches. They consolidate your orders, track your shipments, and keep you updated so you don't have to do these things. Take back your time. Open your free account today at designtradeservice.com/Luann and let DTS do the heavy lifting so that you can focus on design and maybe focus a little bit on that mindset woo-woo too. All right, let's meet David Neagle. Hey, David, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Thanks for having me, Luann. It's an honor.
Yeah, so here's the thing, David. I've read through your website. I've listened to your podcast. We've just had a little bit of a chat. And there are 16 1,000 places that my brain is ping-ponging on what to ask you. But there was a line, and there's usually a line that gets me, and I'm like, that person I want to talk to. Your line was, I can show you how to take your annual income and turn it into your monthly paycheck. And I was like, I'll have one of those, please, David. So I mean, you have so much that you can share and teach about your business and your philosophy and all the entrepreneurs that you've helped over the years. That feels like to me a place to start. But, you either say yes and or yeah, but Lou, let's do this. So get us started, David, on your philosophy and how you help people.
So I think it's important to let everybody know that when I first started down this road, I was an absolute train wreck. I was a high school dropout. I had no skills to work. I was doing manual labor pretty much. I got married young and had 2 kids very early and realized very fast that I did not have the ability to live up to that responsibility at all. So we went down a bad road for a few years. We had car repossessed, went bankrupt. We had to leave our apartment in the middle of the night because we couldn't afford to make payments. We had to move into a bad neighborhood. And I was working on a dock for driving a forklift in Chicago. And for 2 years, I was just beside myself with how I created this disaster. So I was thinking to myself, all right, okay, I get it. I messed up. How do I fix this? And my mind said, you got to go back to school. The problem was I was working 6.5 days a week. We were on food stamps. I couldn't afford to go back to school. So I'm thinking,
right.
How do I...
2 kids, a wife, everything, yeah.
How do I increase my income? So for 2 years, I'm looking like everything that I could possibly think of. Shovel driveways, whatever. Nothing. I didn't increase my income a bit. And then one night, I had a really terrible night at work. I was reprimanded twice before I punched in. I almost lost my job. My partner on the dock didn't show up, so I had to do all the work myself. And everything was going wrong. Pallets of food are falling over. I had to restack stuff. It was just a mess. I was tired. It was cold. It was like 20 below out in Chicago. And I pull into this trailer on my forklift, and the stack, because we were a food distributor, the stack of food just falls over on the floor.
It's just like the camel that broke the
and I just start sobbing. I'm just sitting there sobbing, and I go, God, I don't know what to do. Nothing's working. Show me what to do. I can't do this anymore. And a voice in my head said, David, change your attitude. That's all I heard. But it was as if hand to God, it was as if somebody was in the trailer and said it to me. I literally looked around like, did I really hear that? Is that real? So I got my composure. I went back and started working again. I'm stacking everything, but I'm thinking, what is this attitude thing?
Yeah.
And I really didn't know. I mean, I've heard the word before, obviously. I was a terrible student my whole life in school. The teachers, when they would call my father in to tell me that I was getting another F, they would say, David's a pretty bright guy, but his attitude toward school really is awful. Like if he would fix that, he would probably do well. But my parents didn't know how to fix it either. So when I would go home, they would send me to my room. They would ground me from one report card to another. I wasn't allowed to go out and play. I wasn't allowed to do sports. If we went somewhere on the weekend, I wasn't allowed to participate in that. And I spent most of my childhood this way.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a really crazy scenario. So I'm thinking to myself, what is this attitude thing? Anyway, I took the guy, the company that I worked for was the largest food importer in the United States. And it just so happened that the guy that started the company started it in his garage in Chicago. And he had this really crazy success story, right? And I thought, because of that, I felt like I could relate to him, like he was a kid on the streets like I was, right? And I said, what's the difference between this man and me? And I thought, well, he must have loved what he did because he built this huge company. He must have done really good work. And I don't, number one, I hate what I do, so I don't love it. I did not do good work. I worked to go home. I hated what I did. I had no work ethic. I did not give excellence to anything. And I was increasingly becoming more bitter towards people. Now, I will say I was not raised to be a rude or antagonistic person to other people. My parents didn't teach me that. but I was becoming that way because I was so miserable. I was taking it
Mm.
out on people. Like when I got in trouble that day before I started, I'm in a screaming match with my boss. And he didn't do anything wrong. It was me. It was all me. But,
Right.
I was so defensive and so victim mindset. It was horrible. So I said, I'm going to change these three things. I'm going to act like I love what I do every job to the best of my ability, and treat everybody with total respect. And I'm going to try it for a year and see if it makes any difference whatsoever. And of course, I got this other voice in my head going, you're an idiot. Like, how could that possibly change your income? That will never change your income. You're stupid. It's never going to happen. I said, nope.
You might be happier and people might like you better, but you're still going to be poor next year, is what your
yeah,
other voice is saying,
that's
right?
gracious. Even that's gracious, because I'm thinking to myself, I don't care what anybody says. I heard this voice. I heard this.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what is this? So I said, I'm going to do it. So then, I thought all about this as I'm working the rest of the night. The next day I started, and it wasn't easy to do either.
Tell me the three things again that you said. I'm going to
Like
love what
I do.
Love what I do.
Do every job to the best of my ability and treat everybody with respect.
Okay, got it.
Now there's a little,
not really that hard to do, right? When you think,
like
in the position you're in at this moment,
Yeah.
but hindsight, like you're looking back, you're like, go ahead, I'll let you.
Yeah. Well, there was one other thing. There was one other little piece in here that might resonate with some people. I grew up in a very working class family around a lot of unions, very Chicago-esque. And the mindset was hate the rich.
Yeah.
Hate the rich.
Get away with what you can get away with.
Don't give them an ounce more than they're being paid for. You're just a number, all this stuff. And and nobody ever said, hey, David, this is the way life is. You just hear it, people talking.
That's it. And it's the way of life, right? In that
life.
Environment, wherever that, if you find yourself there, it's the culture.
Yeah.
Just like we create companies with good cultures, there's neighborhoods and communities and towns and companies with bad cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So when it came to the respect thing, what had happened was, as I was working, even though I had a bad attitude, I started to notice something that made a big impression on me. And that was the owner had one of the first 80% automated warehouses in the area at the time, right? This is 1992. Okay. And he was forever doing tours with other CEOs from other businesses. And they would walk in, they'd all be in their $3,000 suits. But what I noticed was that he would never walk past an employee without saying hello. Thanks for doing a good job. Hello. How's your family? Probably 90% of the people in that warehouse didn't even speak English. He didn't speak Spanish, right? Wow. But he never walked past somebody without acknowledging them. And somewhere in my head, I went, this is not what I was taught successful people were like, right?
Right.
So I said, I'm going to change my attitude, and I'm going to treat everybody the way this guy treats everybody. So next day I start. 30 days later, my income tripled. 30 days later.
Were you given more shifts?
No, I went from just under 20,000 to 62,000 in 4 weeks.
Were you given a raise because now all of a sudden you're the diamond in the rough?
No, nothing like that. So here's what happens. There's a guy by the name of Drew Batty. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, he would come to the dock with a fuel truck. And his job was to fill the trucks and the refrigerated trailers that carried the food with diesel fuel. So every Tuesday and Thursday, he would come in and I would give him a manifest of all the trucks that needed to be filled, right? So I know this guy 2 years now. I see him every Tuesday and Thursday. He knew that I didn't want to work there. He knew that I was trying to get a job driving a truck. But in those days, there was a catch-22 to driving a truck because it was actually still a decent job. You could make decent money back then. You had to have 5 years experience to get on with a good company to make the decent money. But nobody would hire you if you didn't have the 5 years experience. So you'd have to work for just like run-of-the-mill companies that were like one owner or something. It was horrible.
Right.
Horrible. So I could never find anything to get hired. So after I make this change, Drew comes in on Thursday and we're talking just like normal or whatever. And he goes, Any luck finding a job driving a truck yet? And he would laugh at me because he knew what the problem was, right? And it's like, it's crazy. You had to know somebody on the inside to get past
Yeah, it's
this
a chicken
rule.
or the egg. You have to
Yeah,
be able to do this, but you can't do that unless you have the thing to do the thing, right?
100%. And I said, no, man. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I may have to find something else. And he says, why don't you come to work for us? And I said to him, now I know this guy 2 years. He's never said this to me. And immediately I became the biggest arrogant jerk you've ever met in your life. 100% true. I went into judging this guy in my head instead of listening to what he was saying to me. And I started laughing at him, not with him, at him. And I said, dude, I'm like, there's no way you're going to get me to drive a bomb. And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, you carry diesel fuel and gasoline, right? He goes, yeah. I said, that's a bomb on wheels. Who wants that job, right? And he starts laughing. So I go, has anybody ever died driving one of those things? And he goes, yeah, last year, actually, we had a guy had a wreck on I-65 in Indiana, and he burned to death.
Oh.
And I'm like, there you go. Well, why would I want this job? And he's just cracking up. And he wasn't buying into my negativity. He was just laughing. And I said, look, you come in here, you smell like diesel fuel, you completely reek. Who would want to be around you? I said, and you're out there in the yard every day. If it's 20 below in snow, you're out there filling the trucks. If it's 98 and humid in Chicago with mosquitoes, you're out there. If it's pouring rain, you're out there. At least I'm underneath a roof, right? This is my logic, right? I'm so bad. So he's just cracking up. And my last comment to him was, I said, besides that, how much could you possibly be making? Oh. And I'm thinking, I make more than he does.
Oh my
and
gosh.
He says to me, David, last year I made 50. I said, what? He said, last year I made 50. I'm like, there's no way. I didn't believe him. I thought he was lying to me. He said, when I come next Tuesday, I'll bring you a copy of my paycheck stub. I said, yeah, you do that. You do that. I'm thinking it's a joke, right? He shows me next Tuesday his paycheck stub. And he had been making about $50,000 a year. So all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? This can't be real, right? I said, what's the downside, Drew? He said, well, the downside is, he goes, you were a union company. He said, and the downside is that you're on the bottom of the seniority list. He said, so if there's layoffs, you get laid off first. Okay. And I said, well, how does the layoffs work in the company? He said, well, 80% of our business is construction. So when the ground freezes in Chicago, we stop working and only the top 20% work. We fill like these truck places and we fill the railroads, stuff like that.
Right.
I said, how long? He said, well, you know the weather here, it depends. He said, they don't start back up till the frost is gone. He said, that could be 3 months, that could be 7 months. So I went home and I talked to my wife about it, and I couldn't help thinking, I already knew how to do this. I could get a job on a dock anywhere in Chicago, right? That I could do. It's a dime a dozen. But this was something different, and it might be a way out. So I said yes. I said yes to it. And I went there and I started. It was 4 weeks later. You had to go in and take a test and a driving test and a drug test and all that stuff. They get that process. I started my training a week after that. That was 4 weeks after I made the decision. And I was making the equivalent of $62,000. My life changed like night and day. Like night and day. And I never got laid off.
Wow.
And in 7 years, one last bit, in 7 years, I went from driving a truck to be in upper management in that company and in charge of expanding them across the country.
Wow. And so the catalyst in there is, despite the fact that you were condescending or, not believing Drew in that moment, the difference was at that 30-day point, after knowing him for 2 years, you were doing these 3 things. And so that's why Drew then noticed you in a different way. Is that what you're saying, right?
No.
Because you're this.
No, I don't think he noticed me in a different way at all. I noticed him in a different way. So I couldn't figure out how this happened because everybody around me was going, oh my God, you got so lucky. You got to realize I didn't even know anybody making $62,000 a year. I mean, nobody in my family made that much money.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, what did I do? How could this actually lead to that much money, this big of a change? Everybody kept saying, you got lucky. Don't screw this up like you've screwed everything up before. So I started going to the library. And I'm like, there must be some kind of information about what happened to me. And I started reading biographies. Then I come home one night and Tony Robbins is on in the middle of the night with his personal power tapes. And I bought those.
Watch him in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I bought those. And I started listening to those. I started listening to the books that he recommended, Think and Grow Rich, As a Man Thinketh, all that
James
stuff.
Allen. Yep.
And every time I heard somebody mention a book, I would get it on cassette tape and I would listen to it in my car because I had my commute to work every day was 100 miles one way.
Whoa.
So I turned it into a study
This was
time.
your MBA that you wanted to go get. This
yeah,
was your
and I
education.
studied like that for 7 years. And then in 1996, I met my mentor, Bob Proctor. I worked with him for 7 years. We had a company together. We spoke all over, taught seminars together. And if it wasn't for that man, I wouldn't be where I am today. He changed everything in my life. And it was when I finally got the mentorship that it changed. I was getting a ton of information, but nobody was helping me organize it in my mind and what to do with it.
How to apply it.
Yeah. I climbed the ladder at that other company just through positive attitude. Right? And showing up that way every single day. I would never say no to them, and I would do every job to the best of my ability. And I would actually think about what are different ways I could help this company expand. They had never seen anybody like me before. They literally nicknamed me. They called me Diamond Dave because I was the only person that ever worked there that was a truck driver that got promoted into management. It was owned by a relatively large Irish family, and all the kids were taking over the business. I was the only person that got promoted out of the ranks at that time.
Wow. That's remarkable. So the thing is now, Dave, you now have taken this experience and all of the experiences since then with your mentor and everything else. And now you have, I just want to call it like quantified it into helping other people make change in their lives and make change that results in great changes in their businesses. You mostly focus working with business owners, small business owners, right?
Right.
So my thing is that's what somebody's listening to now. Okay, you know what? I've listened to Tony Robbins. Maybe the new people listen to, the younger people listen to Lewis Howes or whoever the people are, right? Like for me and you, it's James Allen and Tony Robbins and Napoleon Hill and Zig Ziglar, right?
Yeah.
But like, what is that sweet spot of what is the difference between listening and taking action and listening and processing it so that there's a system? So because I got to believe, I hear you. I know that doing these three things I just think of every job I've ever had. I think of every employee that I currently have, which is like between my three companies, probably 25 people. So my brain is like, yeah, I could use a few of these things happening. Yeah. And the things that you complain about every day that never get better, I got to promise you, if you did these three things, everything would get better for everybody, including you. But like beyond that, like that's a slow burn, right? That's a slow burn. That's like, that's going to, it's going to take me weeks. That's a good
point, actually. It was a slow burn because I did not have a vehicle to apply it.
Right.
That's what I didn't know at the time. I was stuck in a job and I realized after a while, you're going to hit a glass ceiling. You're not going any further. And so I didn't have a vehicle. So then I was like, I want to start a business. I mean, I was really hungry to start a business, but I still didn't think enough of myself yet to lift myself up to the place where I was looking at a business that was actually equivalent to what my potential was. Yeah. It was Bob that helped me understand that.
See the potential.
Yeah, I was thinking about opening up a hot dog stand in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Believe me, I have met the person that you were. I know this person. Throughout my life and my business career and my personal life, I know that person that you were. Yeah. And then when there is the fact that you said like a hot dog stand, when there is that moment of there's something better for me, it really is that. It's a little jump. It's not a big jump. And you're just like, no, that's not the thing.
Right.
Go here. Right.
Right.
So, but the thing is now, when you work with people, I know you're not just saying, hey, do these 3 things and a year your life will be different.
No.
What are some of the things that we can say to the audience listening today that are, some of the actionable things that you know are like, yes, do the
Yeah.
we never can walk away from the slow, hard burn work because that's the foundation. But what's some of the things that you marry with it when you
Okay.
work with
All
people?
right. So this is a parallel story.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I went to Catholic school in Chicago, right? We would do church, the whole thing. And so I'm born in 1966. I remember those days when the television was on. My father had been in Vietnam. You're hearing about the protesting. You're hearing about Martin Luther King. You're hearing about the assassinations. And I had a question as a little kid. I'm like, well, we're learning that we come from this loving God, but I'm like, why are so many people messed up? So I bring this to my catechism classes and I get disciplined for asking the question. I was not supposed to ask that question.
No.
So I tried to get several different people, a couple of nuns that I did not get along with at all. A priest, he wouldn't answer the question. A deacon I met, he wouldn't answer the question. So it was kind of like, I thought, well, one of two things is true. Either God is really a sadistic God, or people don't understand something. There's something that we're missing that we don't know. That's what I'm thinking as a little kid, like 5 years old. So I take this question and it's like I fold it up and put it in my back pocket and it meets me further in my life. Okay. Yeah. In September of 1989, again, we're broke. Everything's crazy. My son was born in June. He had colic for 6 months. My wife and I didn't sleep at all, right? Just a terrible situation. My mom says to us, why don't you get your sister-in-law to watch the kids? You need a break. Let's go out on your uncle's boat on the Illinois River. I'm like, that would be really cool. We'll water ski, we'll cook out.
But us.
Yeah, great. So we do it and we go out there and I get separated from the boat on the skis. And what I didn't know the Illinois River, never been there before. And I found out my uncle didn't know it that well either because he had us skiing close to a dam. And when I got separated from the boat, I got sucked through the dam.
Oh.
It was a near-death experience. I broke my back. I had all kinds of other injuries, but I was only the second person to ever survive going through it. Gosh. And what they told me at the time was that people go through it every year. Like if a boat breaks down, they get separated from the skis, they get caught in the current, they get sucked right through the dam in Marseille, Illinois. Right? So anyway, that's a really long story. But after that happened, I was 24 at the time? I was thinking to myself, life really is short. We don't know. We honestly don't know, right? Most kids in their 20s, they're like, nobody's thinking about death. You're going to live forever. You're armor. But I started thinking about it. And I started thinking, if I'm ever going to do something with my life, I need to do it now. But I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything. That was as far as I got in my thinking. Yeah. And so that happened in 89. My breakthrough didn't come until the end of 92, early 93. So now I'm going through this process. Now, two things that I learned in those years that I was studying. One was I figured out what happened that caused me to triple my income. Number one, the opportunity was always there. Number two, I couldn't see it because I had such a bad attitude. So when I changed my attitude, I changed my perception, and it allowed me to ask questions. Even though I came from a negative perspective the first time, it allowed me to even conceive about going down that road. But what blew me away was that opportunity with Drew was there for 2 years and I never saw it.
Right.
I never saw it. So anyway, I realized two things. Proctor said to me, David, the most important question you will ever ask yourself is, what do you really want? And I realized that when I was studying before I had him as a mentor, I didn't know what I wanted, right? I knew I wanted more than I had, but I didn't know what. I had not raised my self-esteem up to my desire yet. So I was excited and enthusiastic, but I didn't know really where to take it. So when I started working with people, at first I started working with people for free because people would come up to me and they would see the change, right? Like we got a new house, we had, some toys, and they would go, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'll show you if you're really interested, if you
Spray
want to
some of that
know.
pixie dust on me,
Yeah.
right?
Most people didn't want to hear anything about it once I started telling them. But there
No,
were a
because that
few.
seems too woo-woo, and,
Right,
"Oh, I thought you were really gonna teach me how to do it."
right,
That's
right.
okay, bro, I'm fine.
Yes. But there were a few that did, and they changed their life, and they did it
Yeah.
just as fast. And I was not, I was, I mean, I loved everything that I was learning, but I was specifically interested in how this happened so fast.
Hmm.
So I would start working with people from this aspect, and it's the same today. I ask them what do they want, and we get really clear on what that is. It doesn't need to be the big giant vision for 20 years. What do they want right now that they're not saying yes to? And
Mhm.
where do they want to go? Right? So we get very clear on that idea. And then we look at what is it that they're doing, because see, most people, we call them problem first thinkers.
Mhm.
The way that they're approaching life is inherited from their parents. They've never designed themselves as the person that they want to be. So
Yes.
we start that process by helping them design themselves. And I can take anybody, if they're 100% serious and do what I say, I can turn anybody's annual income into a monthly income. There's nothing difficult about it. But they have to know what they want, and they have to do exactly what I say. And if they do that, I've never had anybody not do it.
Wow. Wow. And so, first of all, I'm team this is way I think. So, I am not a yeah but person on anything you're saying. I absolutely believe in this. I mean, I'm 4 years older than you are, and at 10 years old, my mom and my aunt was a Silva method
Yeah,
instructor. It
yeah.
used to be called the Silva mind control.
Yeah, I
Now they call it
remember.
the Silva method, so it
Yeah.
doesn't sound so creepy.
Yeah, right.
But they taught us meditation at 10 years old. They taught us visualization. I'm reading Wayne Dyer, Og Mandino,
Yeah,
James Allen as Man Thinketh.
yeah.
By the time I'm 15, I've got an MBA in woo woo. I've got an
Nice.
MBA in if you think it, you can do it. Right.
Right.
And it's like, and if you dream it, it's yours to create. There's a saying my mom always had. It's like, it's like you can do anything you want. You can achieve anything you want. You may have to work for it. Let's
Yeah.
just be serious, girl. Like it's not a lucky charm in the back of the backyard, but the belief is what's first. And I think that's what you're centering
Absolutely.
on.
Absolutely.
Yes. The
Absolutely.
belief is first. And see, for me, I was wired with the belief in me.
Yeah.
So that's now just go do, and just same as you. First it was, Tony Robbins on cassettes, and then I remember when I had the discs and it was the Walkman,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah. Yeah.
then it's the podcast and the Audible books and all the things, right? So I say all that to say I inherently have lived this, understand it, and believe you with 100% certainty that when you do these three things, act like I love what I do every job to the greatest of my ability, treat everybody I see with and meet with respect, I believe that is the initial and can be the only thing needed as a catalyst for huge change in
Right.
someone's life
Right.
who is sitting there going, the world is against me.
Right.
It's like, dude, the world doesn't care enough to be against you.
Right.
You're doing it all by
Right.
yourself.
And it's the one thing that you can change where
That's
nothing else
right.
is required to change. Right?
Exactly.
It doesn't cost
Exactly.
you a dime. You
Nope.
don't have to travel to do it. It doesn't cost you anything. You can
Nope.
it's deciding who you're going to show up as every day.
Yeah, to me, it's the tandem to, another sentence that I hear in my head all the time for many, many years is, you can't change that person, but you can't change your reaction to that. You can show up differently to that, right? And that's just puts it all back into our plate, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm there and I'm saying to you, yes, and high five, and I believe it. But like, you had to have, with all the speaking that you do and all of the coaching clients and all of the entrepreneurs you've met, you had to have had the yeah, but people before they have the chance to work with you. And you say, I've never met anybody that I've worked with that has done everything I said and that hasn't been successful, that are like, I don't know, dude. The show me.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you say beyond this that somebody can make that transition to? oh, this isn't just woo woo, and that's just not his story, but this is a universal human nature thing that belief in self is core and belief can be limitless. So, how do you help people go from, you know, it's not possible for me
I
to
don't.
it's
I
possible?
don't.
Okay.
I
So,
don't. Because one thing that I realized, and not only did my mentor teach me this, but I became convinced of it myself, just working with thousands and thousands of people. If a person doesn't want it, you're never going to
yes.
convince them.
And if they don't believe it's
And
possible.
if they don't believe it's possible,
Yeah.
you're never going to convince them. And I tried in the beginning. You know, one of the things that was both an astounding realization, but it was also very painful at first. I thought, because I grew up hearing everybody complain about their life, that they would actually want to know the answer to live in an amazing life. I mean,
Some people are
that's
just
that's
fine with
how,
not fine.
yes, that's how immature I was. And when I started to figure it out, the first thing I did was start to bring it to my family. Like, look, I can figure out how we can do this. I can show you how to earn money. I can show you how to be happy, all this stuff. And they were like, get the hell away from me with that
That's
stuff.
right. That's right.
And I'm like, you're
People like to
kidding?
cling to their limiting beliefs.
Yes.
They're
I did
very
not know
safe.
that when I
Yep.
started, but I had to
Yeah.
learn it. And it was, and I'll tell you what, out of all the people that I've seen and spoken to, probably the number one cause of failure within people within businesses has to do with something in their family pulling them back into, the crab back in the bucket type thing, right?
Yes.
Where they don't know how to set the boundaries so that they can move forward, and they get scared and their family pushes back at them and tries to drag them back in. That's the worst, because you have to separate yourself to be your own person and draw a boundary, right? If you don't do that, the people from your past, they're going to try to drag you right back down.
Well, I mean, all the common gurus and teachings that we have in mind, it's the Jim Rohn, right? It's like the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Right.
Like, it's a very simple, that's what I love about the big, the not the big, but the significant teachings of all the greats. It's not a big sentence, but if you do not grasp the reality of that, like, to your point, it's like your family could be your spouse. Like I've said in my presentations before, look, if the person at the end of the sofa, if we start right there and that person isn't all about your interior design firm can be killer, Houston, we got a problem.
We got a problem.
Right?
We got a problem. Yep.
Step 1, I can teach you every single business principle out there. But if you go home every day and you're faced with why you, who do you think you are? What are you doing? Oh, wait, now you're going to be out of town 2 days because you got this big project to do. Like literally, there is the human part of us that will save that life to and forgo the next vision.
Yeah.
It's like with clients, with the designers that I work with, one of the big things that they have, David, is, there's a moment and you get by it, but there's a moment where maybe you're starting out as an interior designer in your first couple of years in business and you're charging $85 an hour, right? Plus, furniture markup or whatever you're doing. And then you're 3 to 5 years in business, you're 125. Now things are starting to get serious, right?
Yeah.
Now we got some bills, we got a couple of employees, and all of a sudden I'm looking, I'm going, you got 7, 8 years experience. You should be $245 an hour. You should be $275 an hour. Oh, I tried to do that. But when I do that, my clients, they don't do the jobs then. I'm like, no, I know that, sweetie. We're saying goodbye to those clients and hello to the new ones, because the ones that you're going to compete against now, if you go to 275, you're going to compete against your designers at your rate up to 350.
Yep.
And I got news for you. The designer, the homeowner that is accustomed to paying $350, $450, they're not even looking at you guys. So now you want to get a look at the clients who are looking at the $275 to $350. That's where you're going, right? So it's like, yeah, you got to say goodbye. But I'm with you. If you're wired to keep going back to old patterns, to old things, whether it was your core family growing up or the family that you've chosen, like, if they don't see that belief with you,
nope,
it's impossible, right?
Yeah. Well, when I got married, I married somebody that we knew each other since we were 14 years old, and we were both running away from a terrible childhood. right?
Okay.
So that was our vision in life, get away from a terrible childhood. And
Yeah.
we didn't know anything about who we were as individuals. And those two individuals turned out to have very different visions of what they wanted for their life. But we didn't know that in the beginning. So it
Right.
created a lot of issues,
Yes.
But it, most people, they follow the pattern of how their parents met in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, do I know enough about myself to even know what I want in somebody else
Right.
that's healthy, and most people don't. So
No. And see, and that's where I have to say, look, you can start to investigate this thinking as you become a young adult on your own at 17, 18, 20, 25, or whatever. But that's where I'm so grateful for the awareness brought to my life at a young age, because when I went out looking for the partners in my life and I ended up on my husband, we're going to have 39 years in another month or two of marriage. It was
congratulations.
like, thank you. Yeah. I was like, no, 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 no. We're not accepting ordinary. We're not accepting average. We're going to, yeah, we're not like made of money. Neither one of us are from money, had money, but we were just like we were these things. We are just going to do everything every day. Like this is the best thing ever. And we're going to do the best we can. And we're just going to like be good to everybody. And it's all going to work out. Like it's like, we just were both these people already.
Yeah.
Right? Like I didn't have to try and say to him, hey, dude, this is how I think we could have a better life. First, we have to do these things on ourselves. You know what I mean? Now, do not anybody think we're perfect. Do not anybody think we have like a marriage that has no bumps and rocks, right? But that was a very true, real alignment from the beginning. At this point, I'm going to be 63 in a minute and a half. He's 77. We just bought another company 4 years ago because we're just like, let's keep doing it. This is great. Like we love doing it together. Half the time he's like, did you pay yourself? I'm like, I don't know. Go ask my mom. Like, I don't know. She's my bookkeeper. Like it's the joy of it. It's the satisfaction of it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
100%.
it is, I always said to my kids, most important decision you will make. Who you choose as your partner. Choose wisely.
Absolutely.
And this is not the place to say, well, I don't really like that trait or that, value, but it'll change. No, man, it will not change.
No, it won't.
It will just dig in deeper and harder.
That's right. Yeah, people say that. How do I get my partner to study what I'm studying? I'm like, you don't.
Right. You don't.
You don't.
You adjust your frame of mind that it matters or enough to leave, or it doesn't matter and you'll be fine with
Right,
it.
exactly.
Yeah, it's like you have to have your non-negotiables, but hopefully they're not on the big things and hopefully
Right.
you can get around them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. So I guess any, parting words of advice for designers that are listening that are just like, okay, give me some tips to take this to the next step on myself. I have these 3 first things. I have these questions that I have to ask myself. What do I really want? What am I, where do I want to go? And what am I not saying yes to?
Yeah.
I like that one. Yep.
So the results that you get in life are dependent upon how you grow as a person. And you're not going to grow if you don't study. That's the only way to get there. You got to study. You fortunately were introduced to it very early. And when I got introduced to it, I thought it was late, but actually, as I've seen, it's actually pretty early for most people.
Right.
So I'm grateful for that, and realize you're worth more than whatever you're settling for. If you're settling, you're missing the mark. There is something so special about you. But you got to study to find it, and then you need to follow it and do only what you love for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Well, and that's what your company is called. It's called Life is Now.
Yes.
It's like, it's this moment. You don't know that the next moment is coming. It's this one. How are you showing up in this moment?
Yeah.
Right. And what do you, like for me, I firmly believe if you have a dream, you already own the ability to make it happen. You just have to clear the fog, clear the cobwebs, and, eliminate the limiting beliefs. And sometimes what I love about all of the things that you said is that, you could have said, hey, you got to get rid of all of the negativity. You got to get rid of all that. But instead, if you just focus on 3 positive things, it gets harder and harder. Right. That's why I said it's a slow burn. But I can picture how it gets harder and harder to let the negative, you're not worth it, in. If you're like, literally living in these three things,
right? Because
right?
our greatest power is our ability to choose. The negativity never goes away completely. It's
No,
that you
right.
discipline yourself to choose to focus on the opposite of that every day. That's what I
Exactly.
learned in the first 30 days that I did it. I could
Yeah.
choose to focus on that I love this, that I would do the best that I can, and I would treat people with respect. And my life has never been the same since I made that
Yeah.
change.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, it's funny. I've said this story randomly throughout the years. In the first year of the podcast, I was introduced to Michelle Williams. She's an outstanding lady. She has a podcast called Profit is a Choice, and she is the founder of Metrique Solutions, which is a software program for creative businesses. So it makes it so that our right brains can do the numbers.
Yeah.
It's really a lifesaver. But within the first year or so of meeting her, within probably 18 months or so, we started to become friends. At that point, she thought she was going to write a book. And she said, you know, I'm gathering quotes and gathering anecdotes from people that I've met that have impacted me. You know, would you, if I give you a question, would you answer it and I'll include it in the book? And I was like, yeah, sure. And the question she gives me is, think of a time that you failed and tell me about it. David, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. And I'm just like, and I'm saying, come on, Luann, come on. Like, and the thing was, the question was, think of a time that you failed, tell us about it, and the how it felt, like the you know, like the hard part of it, right?
Right.
And I kicked it around for 2 or 3 days, and it wasn't like I can't sit there and say, oh, that time I did that time, but I was just like, geez, significant failure. You know, like, what is it? And so then I look at my husband one day after 3 days and I'm like, Vin, you know, if I said to you, tell me of a significant failure and what it felt like to feel that failure, I'm like, what would you say? And he's like, I don't know. I don't think I failed in anything. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we're both wired wackadoodle, right? But the thing was, it caused me to really go deep because I'm not an egotistical person. And I do not think that I have done everything successfully in my life. And so it caused me to go deeper and say, why could I not bring up the stomach punch? Why couldn't I not think of the time that I was a puddle of mud on the floor, right? And I realized, because I was also trained from very young to immediately flip to, this is wrong, you screwed it up, or this person screwed it up. We're in a situation, but what's the way through? And I just immediately make that switch. And then it's the reflection on how not to be here again. So then every failure is like a book that somebody put it, and I had to live the life of that book as opposed to go read it in a book.
Yep.
Right. It's the only reason I bring that up is because that is the flip of the mindset switch, right? It's one of those flips that you have to make, that it's like, yes, okay, let's list all the times I failed, but like, oh my God, look at all the opportunities came because I fixed that thing and I learned that lesson from it. And so I think it's just living in the right frame of mind, right, David? And
Absolutely.
seeing the things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a learned thing too. That's the thing. I was lucky to learn it young, but you can learn it at 20,
That's
at
right.
40, at 50, at 60. There's no time limit
That's
on
right.
learning it.
No, I've had people come in their 80s that have
Really?
changed, yes, and started businesses from scratch. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yep. There's there's
That's
people
amazing.
out there that are just like, hey, I'm alive now. Let me see what I can do. They don't look at their age, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. So your company is called Life is Now.
Yep.
You have yearly programs that you work with people. I'm assuming there's information on the website. You also have a podcast called the Successful Mind Podcast.
Right.
So that's where people can take step 2 to get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah. If they go to lifeisnowinc.com/successful mind, that'll take them right to the podcast.
Okay. And then I don't have that screen open, but I feel like there was like a quiz that you have. Am I crazy? Am I making that up?
Let's see.
Visionary leader quiz?
No, that's gone. That just hasn't been taken down. That's not there anymore. No.
Okay, fine. All right. So, I mean, I appreciate your time today.
Yeah,
This
thanks for having me. It was a ball.
Yeah. I think it's so awesome, the work that you do, helping people. Really, you're just helping them uncover what's already inside of them,
Absolutely.
right?
Can't imagine anything more fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
You know, if you're listening a long time, you know I love conversations like this. I just love exploring the possibilities beyond our own imagination, right? One of the things I love most about David's story is that it is proof, it's absolute proof that your past does not dictate your future. He shared with us how he was a high school dropout, how he was working manual labor, how he was on food stamps. And I want you to pause on that for a moment, because it's easy when we hear from someone who now runs a multi-million-dollar company to think, well, of course, you know what? He must have had a leg up, or she must have been, I don't know, a legacy person or something, right? They had to have resources I don't have. Well, like David said, hate the rich as much as you like just the way he was taught. But it doesn't do you any good. It just doesn't do it. And it has nothing to do with whether or not you will be successful. Okay? And that's why his transformation is a powerful example for you and me. David told us about that moment in the warehouse when everything was falling apart. And then he made that simple decision that changed everything. He committed to 3 very simple but extremely powerful actions: to act as if he loved what he did, to do every job to the very best of his ability, and to treat every single person with respect. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated, just 3 plain choices that he practiced every day. And those choices became the catalyst for an entirely new life and business. You know, and it wasn't 10 steps at one time. It wasn't an MBA program. It wasn't a magic formula. It was just a decision to show up differently. What do I tell you every day? Decide to be excellent. It's a decision. And that's the piece I don't want you to miss, because you can do that today. You don't need permission. You don't need a perfect plan. You can decide today to change the way you're thinking and the way you're showing up in your business, especially when David gives us these 3 little sentences as guide rails for this new way of thinking, right? Now, let's get back to some of the specific things that David shared. First, the mindset shifts. He said many of us are raised with a working class mindset. We're taught that success is about doing everything ourselves, about being self-made, about grinding it out. But the truth is, this mindset will cap your growth. If you want to build a business that actually really, really succeeds beyond your imagination, you're going to have to learn to delegate, to allow yourself to receive support, and to stop believing that you alone can do it, or you alone should be doing it, that you alone are carrying the weight of your entire business, right? This ties back to money mindset as well. If you remember, we talked about this several times on the podcast over the years. We had episode 957 with Audrey Faust, and episode 913, Terry Taylor talked about it. These are just a couple times that we've talked about this. We'll link these in the show notes. But the point is, we have had these conversations and we know what's possible. We know that if we believe in what's possible, if we believe we're worth it, we can change the opportunities and we can create and see the kind of clients that we want to and imagine working with. The opportunities for David were right in front of him the whole time. You know, he didn't see them until he changed his perspective. And this is true for us too. If you're telling yourself, I can't charge that much, or I can't hire yet, or I'll never get that kind of a client, well, guess what? You probably won't, right? The second thing is David talked about creating a culture of success. And I think this is critical for us as leaders. Too often, we're afraid of making mistakes, ours and our teams. We might punish team members. We might punish ourselves. We might avoid them when mistakes happen. We try to sweep them under the rug. But David reminded us that mistakes are where the growth happens. This is the insight. Your mistakes are gold, right? It's like I told you my story, my philosophy on failure. They're not failures if you treat them as stepping stones. They're only failures if you rationalize, you push them under the rug, you pretend it's somebody else's fault, then you don't learn the lesson in it. And then it is a failure, my friend. But if you change your perspective on it for yourself and your team, okay, then you can find the growth in it. And when you foster psychological safety in your company, when you encourage your team to take ownership and learn from their mistakes, that's how you unlock innovation and loyalty. You get both. You get people who aren't afraid to think bigger, to push the boundary, to look at you and say, hey, what about this? And you also create loyalty because you create safety, right? So could your interior design firm be stronger? Your window treatment business, could it be stronger if your team felt safe to grow alongside of you instead of afraid to step out of the line? That's something you can start instilling today in your next conversation with your team. You can choose encouragement over criticism, and that's a big choice. David talked about the blind spots that keep us prisoners in our own businesses. How many of you feel like you're working for your own company instead of the other way around? I know a lot of people show up as the employee in their own business. So that's the thing. David's point here was you don't have to accept that. You have to be willing to look honestly at the patterns that are keeping you stuck. This might mean examining your pricing. It might mean finally letting go of clients who drain you so that you can make room for the ones who will actually support your growth and fulfill you creatively. It might mean raising your rates, even when you're scared, right? Or it might mean saying yes to help or to mentorship or to guidance, because it's so hard to see our own blind spots without someone else holding up the mirror for us. So here's the thing, like my friend and my business coach, Amber De La Garza, always says, no change is no change. No change equals no change, right? Nothing changes until you change. And that's what I hope you take away from today's episode with David. You don't have to wait for the perfect conditions or the perfect client or the perfect opportunity. You can decide right now, like he did in that moment, to show up differently. You can decide right now to show up differently in your business, and that decision can change everything for you. Just like when you decide to get that business education you know you're missing, right? That's a decision. That's a change, right? And I want you to understand, you have to constantly be thinking, I'm willing to do better. I'm willing to stop accepting the status quo. So if that's where you're at and you know you need more business education, come to Lou University. We have 5 tracks. All the tracks in a well-designed business: operations, finance, sales, marketing, leadership. Go to luannuniversity.com, learn about the courses and when the next semester is opening. David, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your story, and your hard-earned lessons with us. And thank you for showing up and listening to this episode today. Choose one thing, just one, to change today for you and for your future. Maybe it's writing down the limiting belief that you've been carrying around and deciding finally that you're done with it. Maybe it's sitting down with your team and having a real conversation about safety around mistakes. Maybe it's pulling out your pricing sheet and raising that hourly fee. Whatever it is, please do it. Because like David says, life is now. To learn more about David, listen to his podcast, you want to work with him, whatever it is, visit his website, lifeisnowinc.com. And don't forget his assessment quiz. This is a helpful tool to help you get started on a new path. That link will also be in the show notes. Thanks tons for showing up for me today. I appreciate you. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or Luann University, go to luannigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to windowworksnj.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.